Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Krysta Gibson with New Spirit Journal, and my guest today is Marilyn Redmond, and she is a spiritual counselor, teacher, and author, and has just completed her latest book, Paradigm Busters: Revealing the Real You. Now, she holds a Bachelor of Arts in Education with 3 years of graduate work, and she's pursuing a Doctor of Science in Holistic Ministries. Marilyn is a retired school teacher, a spiritual minister, and she offers spiritual counseling along with instruction in healing, regression, past life therapy, and readings. Welcome, Marilyn.
Well, I'm glad to be here today. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Let's jump in and let's talk about your book, Paradigm Busters: Reveal the Real You. Tell us what the book is about and where the title fits in and so on.
Well, the book is actually the process. I call it the ultimate how-to book and how to move your consciousness into heaven on earth, or unconditional love, or Christ consciousness. It's different terms for all the same thing.
Right.
And so many people are wanting to move into a spiritual journey and move along the path, and my book has chapter by chapter the actual process that will take you there. So you will end up in a higher consciousness. But if you're following, it's a workbook, so you actually write in the book, and there's actually tools and information for helping you as you go through the book. And so it's a hands-on book as well as just a read-it book. And so to me, it's a real practical book, because so many people are saying, well, everybody says to do it, but they don't tell you how. So
right.
This is the how.
Exactly, because, yeah, I hear that same thing, and that's one of the reasons we try to make our articles practical, because people are like, well, I've heard for years what I'm supposed to do. I just don't know how to do it. Now, your book...
Exactly. So that's what I tried to put together. It's worked for me, and I know if it works for me, and I have a lot of friends it's worked for, and clients it's worked for. I do counseling, and people come and it helps you to release the obstacles that are stopping you from moving forward, because within you is always the grace of God. We were created with that. It's just not our job to look for God. Our job is to get rid of the obstacles that are blocking it, and this is the book that will help you do that.
Well, now you talk about energy a lot in the book. So what do you mean by energy, and how does that apply to our consciousness?
Well, that's a really good question, because energy, we're all energy fields. Everything has energy in it. That's just another word for spirit. So we're all full of energy, and it's learning how to apply that energy to be productive in our lives. That's actually what Jesus came to teach, was the right use of energy. So as we're raising our focus, our energy within us, when we release those obstacles, our energy actually rises into a higher consciousness or a higher perception. I have an original chart in my book that I have put together to show the steps of consciousness. In the Bible, they call it the Jacob's Ladder. And so that as you release different lower fearful energy, guilt, shame, anger, all those kinds of energies, then you are actually leaving space for the grace of God to enter. So as you raise your consciousness, you're increasing that positive, benevolent energy in you to actually manifest into your life. So consciousness and energy and spirit are all terms that are used today, but in the biblical days, they had to find terms that would help. They weren't as sophisticated as we are today.
Right.
So today we have science and understanding they didn't have. So the terms sometimes do confuse people.
So now you're talking about changing energy and moving into higher consciousness or dimensions. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, I think sometimes we take that word dimensions loosely and don't always explain what we mean by that. So when you talk about moving into a higher dimension, what does that actually mean?
Well, it means that we came to Earth in a third dimension, human being form, where spiritual beings actually discarding our human characteristics. So we came down to planet Earth as third dimensional to release our karma and any negative energy that's actually blocking us off from the conscious presence of God. So in third dimension, we've been taught and brainwashed and conditioned into fear. And we are in the energies of various kinds of fear throughout our life. And so lots of criticism, lots of judgment, lots of ought-tos, you should do this. And people have not learned to look inside themselves, and they stay in this lower dimension, which is fear-based. And as we address and come to grips and come out of our denial of those things that we really do need to change, we go through the fourth dimension. That's kind of the transition stage of leaving being a fear-based person. And as gradually we are releasing those obstacles, we move up the ladder of consciousness into actually merging into the fifth dimension, which is unconditional love. Some people call it Christ consciousness, and it's possible to reach that. The picture on my book is an orange sky, which actually I found out a year after it occurred to me from facing my last fear that it represented Christ consciousness. So what I know today is the more we release what isn't love, then we have space for the love to actually manifest in our lives, and it's been blocked. So as we move through fourth dimension, we actually can arrive into a higher consciousness where everybody is cooperative and caring and helpful and supportive, and there's not the negativity of Earth. And we still will be walking around, but with an attitude of love your neighbor as yourself. And so as we're doing this change, we go through many emotional changes as the energy does happen to rearrange in our systems. And so it's really quite a trip. I have a friend that says growing up is not for sissies. And so that's exactly what we're doing, is we're outgrowing our immaturity of third dimension. But you cannot change energy in the higher realms because it is unconditional love. The energy is pretty neutral, I guess you'd say. And so souls actually want to come to planet Earth because this is our opportunity to release the negative history, our karma, or however you choose to call that energy that's still in our soul that needs to be transformed into love. And we can do that on planet Earth. And the people around us are actually our mirrors to do that. So many people will say, well, if they just straightened up, I'd be just fine. And right. I used to say, well, if my husband just quit drinking, we'd get along just perfectly. And he was the problem. But I discovered he was my mirror. And everything that was wrong with him was really what was wrong with me. And so as we discover that it's an inside job, and those people around us that are irritating are actually telling us what we need to change in ourselves, and that's how we move up the ladder of consciousness into fifth dimension. Eventually we love ourselves completely, and that's what we emanate to others.
And then as we do that, some of the people in our lives then change, right?
My whole life has changed because of this. I was raised in a very dysfunctional family of mental illness and alcoholism, and I was able, a month ago, to have a family dinner, and everybody sat at the table in harmony, cooperation, supporting each other through various ways that day, and we had the most pleasant evening. Now, that didn't happen when I was a child. It was all fighting at night, and my dad didn't like what my mother cooked. He went off to the tavern or off to I was raised in Seattle. He went off to Aurora where all the stores were and things. And so, it was a very chaotic and turmoil type of childhood. And here's this beautiful evening that we had. And I know today that I have changed enough to recreate my own reality. And so we do really change ourselves, but we change what's around us.
Right. Now, are there some specific steps that a person can take to move towards a better life? Are there certain, ways that people can do that? I mean, I'm sure that's in your book, but can you share a little bit of that with us?
Right, because what I've discovered, it's our thoughts and our words and our actions when we're trying to survive, and that's third dimension. We're trying to survive through all the situations that occur. We're actually sending out attacks to those people around us. I discovered that through my domestic violence and healing that I, in trying to protect myself, was actually harming him, only it was subconscious. And he was acting out consciously. And, of course, it was like playing poker, and you raise the ante, and eventually it becomes physical violence, not just emotional. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing is we're changing our behaviors and our attitudes and our in becoming faith-based people and having a conscious contact with a higher power that will help us come out of handling our lives that way. So instead of our ego running the show, we start to say, well, God's will be done, thy will be done. One of my things is, God, what is the most beneficial way to handle this problem for me and the other person? And so I'm coming from a different place than protecting myself. I'm actually coming from extending God's love to others, and that's the change. And in the book, there's actual assignments to help you find those changes.
So they can actually take actual steps to reaching that place. So
yes, one of I have several ways in the book to explain it at different points in the book. One way is to identify what you think is wrong with the other person, and then you have to look at yourself and say, where am I being selfish? Where am I being dishonest? Where am I frightened? And who am I being inconsiderate of? And you always find out it's yourself that you're being inconsiderate, because somehow you're not being honest, and that's you stay in denial, you're not being honest. So, or if you're not honest, you're not connected to God. So, and then I have a chart where you look for what you appreciate in that other person rather than what's wrong. And and of course, can pray, send prayers for what you want for yourself to that other person, so that you see them from different eyes. There's a variety of things in the book that I recommend: regression therapy, past life regression, to see where is this coming from. I mentioned flower essences because they raise your energy they're homeopathic. You take them orally. And I use the frog flower essences, but I also use the Lummi Island tree frog farm essences. I feel they're a little more spiritual. The Bach are more emotional. And you can actually add loving energy to your life so that you'll find yourself, all of a sudden I'm doing this in a healthier way. In fact, I found myself just recently, 2 experiences came up, and all of a sudden I was finding myself trying to find solutions where I was not being selfish in the situation. So, and that was a huge major step from where I came from. So I was always in survival in my past, and I don't have to be there today. It's really a nice space to be in this new place. It surprises me at times.
Absolutely. Now, you've addressed this a little bit, but as I'm sure you and our listeners know, there's a lot of drama going on in the world today. And so can you talk a little bit about how you can leave behind drama and worry and live more in the present? Because I think that's a really valuable thing for people to be able to do.
I agree, and that's really a major problem, is leaving that old negative drama and trauma. And when we realize that's our old feelings and our old history, and we're not even living in that anymore, that's the history, and we can't recreate it, and we can't pray for a new, better past. That's Oprah's favorite comment. That we need to move into the present. And there's a couple ways you can actually do that. My book shows you some very specific methods, but a quick way I've discovered is to put a gold circle around the person or situation, and to put a gold cross in the center, and to fill it with the white light of Christ. And when you start seeing them from that point of view, you're no longer the victim in the situation. You no longer have to protect yourself. You've moved into the presence. You're in the now. And it's like is a past issue, like, that's not bothering me anymore. So when you continue to do that, so your energy's moved into the now focus with the love of God as the situation that's going on, you move into the presence of God, it will release. And I also came from a situation, my mother going through the depression was a big worry ward about finances. And you can also give up your worry about finances so you can move into the now also. Because what happens is if you're worrying about the future, worrying whatever the future problems might be, or the past, you're actually draining your energy off of the present. And that's what causes illness. When people are giving their energy away to things that aren't even real, because, we're not in the past anymore. We don't have to relive it over and over. And I help people in the book get off that hamster wheel and move into the present with some other tools that are in the book. And you can actually gain your health back and your sanity. In fact, I was mentally ill, bipolar. I was paranoid schizophrenic. Like my mother, I have been declared sane. When you're in the presence of God, there is no illness, and you have sanity. So the goals are worth the effort, even though sometimes it's challenging.
So it sounds like what you're teaching in the book, you've lived it. So this isn't just theory. It sounds like you've overcome a lot of your own personal situations and issues. And so when people work with this, they can be assured that it's not just theory.
It has been a lifelong journey of overcoming these difficulties I had. I prayed as a child years and years back, God, please give me the answers. I'm looking for ways to handle this. And I actually had spent at one point $100,000 on recovery of various kinds, trying to get my health and sanity back. And I asked God, well, what do I still need to do? Because after my divorce, I knew I wouldn't have money like that. And so that's when I learned to do past life regressions, and that's when I learned about meditation, and that's when I learned about flower essences, and all of those will pull me into the now. And it doesn't have to be a costly experience, I discovered. In fact, I'm going to acupuncture now, and I found a place that's only $15 a visit.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a community acupuncture studio, they call it. And there's not one person at a time. They take a group of people at a time. So, God seems to provide inexpensive things for me today that used to cost me a fortune.
Right. Now, you're giving a class called Living in the Principle of Love, May 21st. Can you tell us a little bit about the class and what people could expect if they go to the class?
Well, thank you. Yes, the class is May 21st this year, coming down the pike next month. At 1 o'clock, we'll have registration, and the program will start at 1:30, and it will be a PowerPoint program where I take people through each chapter of the book, explaining the tools and the pages that are needing to be filled in and the graphs. God gave me all kinds of diagrams that are in the book. I've known these diagrams for years and used them in other classes, but I finally was able to compile them into this book the way they were meant to be. And so as we're going through the book, we will find the answers that individually, because the people there can give their examples if they're looking for answers. We'd be glad to help them find some of them while they're there at the class. So if people are ready to leave their pain and suffering behind and move into a higher purpose that we were designed for, the class is designed to take you through the book so you can use it effectively. And the book will be supplied. If you register, you will get a book when you come to the class. So, in fact, if you register early, you get a discount, which will help me to know that to have a book there for you. So,
right.
If you go to my website, Marilyn, my website is angelicasgifts.com, and a page that says lectures and events, and on there it has more details. It's being held at the Normandy Park Congregational Church. They have a nice facility there. And you click on the brochure link, and you can get a registration form. So if you sign up early, it's $65. If you wait till the first part of May, it's $75, but at the door we're charging $80. I'm trying to have the books on hand for everybody. So the sooner you sign up, the less it is for you and the easier for me to have the books there for you.
Absolutely, and you'll know how many people are coming. And I do want to encourage people to go to your website, angelicasgifts.com. There's just a lot of great information there in terms of a lot of the different things that you do in addition to your writing, about the past life therapy and regression and some channeling you do. So it's just a wonderful website to go check out and find out more about what you're doing and get involved with some of the things you're doing.
Well, I try to keep people informed. I also have a blog, MarilynRedmondBooks.blogspot.com, and so I have a newspaper that's linked to my blog if people are interested in more information. I have 7 books on Amazon.com, and I have several paperbacks and several e-books, and they're all spiritually oriented with answers that address different spiritual situations. And my channeling is on YouTube, but I also have a lot of lectures and interviews and information on YouTube. I've had 5,200 people click into my YouTubes at this point, so I'm excited about that.
Absolutely. And that's such a great way to kind of get a feel for somebody and get to know a little bit about them, is to actually, see them in action on YouTube. So it's a great technological advance that is very supportive of the kind of work that you're doing.
Well, I actually had a lady last week call me from Washington, D.C. because she'd been watching my YouTubes and knew I could help her. Her daughter had bipolar, which I used to have, and she was asking for help in that regard. And she said, I just love your YouTubes. Every word you say is golden. And I just was glowing.
How wonderful. What a great feedback to get from somebody. That's fabulous. Well, we're going to be wrapping up here in a minute or so. I just thought I'd ask, is there anything I haven't asked you or haven't covered that you'd want to share with our listeners?
Well, I appreciate that. I'm just so glad that people are hopefully planning to come to the program on May 21st. And the book, of course, will be available at Amazon.com or off my website. It's being published right now, and we'll have it ready for the program. I do counseling, spiritual counseling, where people can come and find out the root cause. This is the major focus of my work, is when you find out the root cause, where did this predicament start? That's why the past life regression and regression therapy is so important. I'm also a member of the American Board of Hypnotherapy. When you see where it started, you can resolve it in a healthy, loving way, and you don't have symptoms, and that includes medical as well as emotional symptoms. So I had one lady show up for past life regression, and she was trying to get out of her codependency, and in the middle of the session, she says, is that what I'm doing? I don't have to do that anymore.
That's great. It's great.
So when you look at yourself in a way that really resolves the issue, we don't have to carry those illnesses with us the rest of our lives.
Which is wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being with us here today and for sharing yourself. And again, your website is angelicasgifts.com. So please go check out Marilyn's information and see about coming to the workshop. Thanks so much, Marilyn. Take care now.
Well, you have a good afternoon, and thank you for the interview.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.